Hey Ian, I'm really glad you could make it to raid night. Have you done Mechatork before?
Oh, hi Josh. No, I've never done it before, no. But with this fight going on to LFR next week, I thought I'd better take a look at what mechanics we can totally remove to trivialize it enough for bugs to be able to manage.
Okay, great. Well, the key to this encounter is communication. Okay, like, I was playing on my shaman the other day, and there was, like, no communication at all, and we wiped a ton. So, as long as we communicate clearly, we should be fine.
Yeah, sure, I understand. Communication is something that we really pride ourselves on, so this should be pretty simple.
Okay, here we go! Okay, Ian. Hit the buttons as I tell you what colors are above your head. Red, blue, green. Okay, Ian, what buttons do I need to press?
Okay, so the thing is, we've been getting a lot of questions recently about exactly what colors are above the heads on the robots, and whereas we'd love to just say, yeah, sure, these are the colors above your head, what we're trying to do is put in place a framework whereby, you know, maybe in the future,
Ian,
you don't need to ask.
Seriously, what are the colors above my head, Ian?
Or at the very least, we can implement new colors above your head a whole lot easier. I mean, I want to say it's red, and if I had to say a color,
red?
that's
I'm
what I'd say.
pressing red,
That's
Ian, is that
definitely
right?
what we're aiming for.
I'm pressing red!
It's going to take a lot more work before we can really say
knowledge is power.
Hello Internet, and welcome to another weekly reset. Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow, and can I just say, may I make so bold, but I'm really looking forward to this episode. After the genuine human drama of last week and the in-game level drama of the previous weeks, I'm very pleased to tell you that nearly everything in this episode is stuff that is coming up in the actual game, and we are going to talk old gods. And yes, I know we're always talking old gods at the moment, but honestly, there is like constant new old god stuff getting put center stage right in front of us the whole time, and it's really exciting, and I want to talk about it, and I feel like we're friends, and I want to talk about it with you. Is that so bad? There's new details regarding the Crucible of Storms mini raid and what it's all about and where it will lead, new allied race stuff, and some very interesting lines from Bwonsamdi. And all of this has to do with the upcoming patch 8.1.5, which is starting to look like an unexpectedly cool patch when all is said and done. But before any of that, World First Watch. Because as you know, Battle for Azshara is the current raid, and it happens to be an especially good raid. I know I'm not alone in suspecting it will go down as one of the all-time great raids, but that's not what's important. What's important right now is, how is the World First race going? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, the World First race ended literally weeks ago. Method got World First and World Second. Limit weren't banned. It was a classic race, and you'd be right. All of that did happen, but I'm talking specifically about my guild and their own race to World First. Because look, here's the thing, okay? I love my guild, Immortalis, despite having a name I personally wouldn't have chosen, and despite the fact that I did once leave in a big drama. That was all ages ago. I love my guild. They are wonderful and funny and kind, but we are, at best, a curve guild who stroll through heroic and do a couple of mythic bosses here and there as the mood takes us. But that doesn't mean that we don't take our own World First race incredibly seriously, okay? The World First race involving guilds with a name quite similar to ours. And as you can see, the race has taken a dramatic twist, with our guild, Immortalis, down to second place after leading the rankings for a month. In fact, in Heroic Battle of Azshara progress, we are still 2 bosses ahead of the leaders, but this week, German guild Vox Immortalis did a cheeky little mythic kill of Champions of the Light, which puts them above us in overall progress. And with our closest rivals in third still progressing normal difficulty, well, I think you can see that this tier is turning into a bit of a 2-horse race, which could go right down to the wire in like a month or two, I guess. It's very exciting. I think we can all agree. We'll be sure to keep you updated on this one for sure. And so, on to all of that juicy 8.1.5 talk, because there are many players who fell out of love with the game because of its basic gameplay systems, and they are hoping that 8.2 will be the soft reboot that sets Battle for Azeroth on its way to being a fondly remembered expansion in much the same redemptive turnaround as Mists of Pandaria had. But for those of us still playing the game and enjoying it right now, and I promise you there are some of us, 8.15 is a chance for BFA to build on that goodwill that 8.1 has won it. And I think for most of us playing the game, that is the case. The 5th ring does, surprisingly perhaps, make Azerite armor considerably more fun and satisfying, and is more than enough of a fix relics to see us quite happily to the system being completely redesigned in 8.2. I predicted that the 5th ring wouldn't make any difference. I was slightly wrong. I like it for now. Incursions are also surprisingly enjoyable. I predicted they would suck, but actually funneling Horde and Alliance into the same area with the context that they are attacking each other makes for some really manic world PvP encounters. I think the Incursion Caravan escort missions are war mode facilitation at its absolute best, and I take my hat off to that shit. The raid is universally loved. Honestly, and I've said this before, I think if 8.1 had released a month or 6 weeks earlier and included Kultiras and Zandalari allied race unlocks with it, the community reaction would have been overwhelmingly positive, which proves that actually release dates are important. Which begs the question, doesn't it? When will 8.1.5 actually be with us? Well, the third and final wing of Battle for Azshara lore on Raid Finder opens on February the 26th on North American servers, so there are some hopeful souls throwing around the reset after as being a potential release date, which would be March the 5th, and this is technically the earliest it could happen, but do you really think it will? Every other LFR wing has been open for 2 full weeks before the next unlocked, so really I'd say that actually the following week of March the 12th would be the earliest that the patch could drop. But do you really think that will happen? Obviously it would be lovely, you know, but I'm not holding out too much hope, to be honest. I think it's far more likely to be the 19th or the 26th, unless it's not actually going to be March at all, which, and I don't think this is hyperbole, okay, but that would be a total world-ending disaster and probably the death of the game. WoW needs some momentum in these releases right now, and in fairness, the patch does look pretty much ready on the PTR. The new allied races certainly seem to be in place and okay for launch, with Blizzard releasing a new video this week reminding players what they need to do to unlock Kultiran humans and Zandalari trolls. A video that the player base were really happy to see, taking it as a sign that the wait was nearly over and that at any minute now we were liable to get an official announcement about the no, it was a shit show, obviously. I just wanted to say F you to Blizz, smiley. This video makes me puke. Good job, Blizzard. Keep ruining WoW. Fetch me my wallet. Not. I wonder how many people have died waiting for these races that were done 6 months ago. I actually think that's quite an interesting question. So quite apart from any kind of point that needs to be made, I worked it out. So for someone waiting to play one of these races since BFA released on the 14th of August 2018, if there are 7,686,061,893 people in the world, a figure already out of date by the time I finish saying it, but this is an estimate, and if there are at least the 3.4 million people that bought BFA on day one who could be described as waiting for Zandalari trolls and Kultiran humans since then, whether or not they're still actively playing the game, let's be generous, let's say 4 million eventually, which means the proportion of the world's population waiting for these allied races is 0.05%. 151,600 people die each day, so 29,562,000 since BFA released. Proportionately adjusted for the age groups and world first status of most of the game's players, divided by 100, multiplied by 0.05 means that I estimate roughly 443 people have died waiting for Zandalari trolls to be made playable so far. So, you know, I can see why people are upset, is what I'm saying. And I have said before that whereas I think allied races are an awesome idea, Blizzard's handling of them has been pretty bad in places. The pre-patch allied races should have all had their reputation requirements removed the day that BFA went live. And the reasons that Kultirans and Zandalari trolls are later than planned are pretty compelling, but they still should have come with 8.1 at the latest, and I think it's a mistake that they didn't, personally. And even though I think that, one thing I find it harder to get upset about is the idea that these allied races were advertised as launch features and it's therefore some kind of consumer rights issue that they're only arriving now. That was never the case for Kultiran humans anyway, and we are actually getting the 7th and 8th allied race unlocks this expansion, so they're still doing better than plenty of the stuff that gets announced for a new expansion at any given BlizzCon. I'm still waiting for the airborne vehicular combat that was promised to me in writing on the actual box of Wrath of the Lich King, you know? Another thing about that WoW video though, there's no release date on it, which is another reason I kind of suspect we may be seeing 8.15 a bit later rather than sooner. So the question is, if the allied races are seemingly ready to go, what is it that's holding this patch back? Is 8.15 ready to launch or not? And as I say, it would seem from the PTR, just about. Blue bot spoiler warning here, but we've been able to play the new war campaign stuff on the PTR for a while now, as well as the Xal'atath questline, where we gather 3 void artifacts so Naifu can regain her power and maybe kind of reawaken N'Zoth a bit, which you, player character, are apparently willing to do because there are Naga invasions or something happening that we need to stop. And those Naga invasions haven't been properly implemented yet, and it seems they are the main repeatable content of 8.15, so yeah, I don't think it's going to be March the 6th this thing goes live, put it that way. The new profession artifacts and their quest lines are generally slotting into place, and there has been raid testing on both of the new Crucible of Storms bosses now, as well as the really unique loot tables seemingly all finished apart from some fine tuning. But all of that mini raid stuff won't go live until a few weeks into the patch anyway, so that's all in pretty good shape. Once those Naga invasion world quests find their way onto the PTR, I'll be willing to say that this patch is just around the corner, but not before. And by the way, I really want to see those Naga invasion quests. Apparently they're just like fill the bar type things, but there's some interesting NPC names there, like the Abyssal Eel and Dark Murloc. As well as the new Cycle of Life world quest, which has Scroll Sage Nola asking us to stop juvenile turtles from reaching the water, because presumably there are now just too many turtles in the water, and somehow I still don't have Exalted with Tortolan. Like, seriously, what's even going on there? But what I want to talk about, and I'm going to put a nice big juicy red bot spoiler warning up for this, is the Crucible of Storms, and not really the raid itself. There was testing done this week. I didn't do it because I had Guild Raid, so the gameplay footage you're seeing here is from our buddy BrutalLSTATIC's Twitch stream, which you should all sub to because he's #1, you know? And from the feedback the testers have given, apparently at least half of these bosses are really interesting and fun, even if people are worried that we might outgear them on day 1. But no, what I want to talk about is where this shit goes down. Because after defeating the Restless Cabal in the Shrine of Storms area that we're all already familiar with, there's one of those cool in-game cutscenes that show this gaping maw erupting through the floor, which sees our player characters hurtling through the darkness and landing inside this. Okay, Blizzard, I have questions. Because look, okay, I'm no expert, but this looks suspiciously like the inside of a living being to me, and this is the Eye of N'Zoth. This is considered part of N'Zoth. I have to ask at this point, are we inside N'Zoth right now? Because if we're not inside N'Zoth, we're inside something, and that thing appears to have eaten N'Zoth, but I don't think that's what's happened. I kind of think we're inside N'Zoth's belly right now. Like, someone please tell me why I'm wrong about this, because I must be wrong, but we can't be inside N'Zoth, right? And anyway, if we are inside N'Zoth, then yeah, it turns out the final old god was below the Shrine of Storms all along. I know, I'm so surprised, especially as I thought there were no old gods in this expansion at all. I thought it was all faction war stuff, but here we are. Incidentally, it also means that this aged pretty well. Okay, possible spoiler or whatever, because in that cavern, if you keep swimming down, there's some pretty big tentacles down there. As in huge, building-sized tentacles that you will die if you get too close to. Ladies and gentlemen, is this our first stolen glimpse of something bigger than any of this? Is this N'Zoth? I mean, it is, isn't it? But whatever, there's also the small matter of those 3 artifacts which we collected for Xal'atath earlier on, which appear in both fights in this raid. The first encounter seeing the Restless Cabal using them against you, and then in the final fight, you use them against Unat, Harbinger of N'Zoth, who has some creepy dialogue with the old god before the fight starts.
Patience. They may yet prove worthy of my gift. I will taste their dreams.
The gift they're talking about is the one that N'Zoth gives you at the end of the Xal'atath questline, which lets you see other characters and NPCs that have it, which is really interesting in itself because some players will choose to have it cleansed by Brother Pike, and some won't, creating this secret club of N'Zoth supporters in-game, almost like a whole new faction. Okay, I'm sure it's not important. Anyway, I'm sure the choice you make won't impact any interactions you may or may not have further down the line, although there is a helm you can get to temporarily give yourself the gift too, so if you like you can get it cleansed but still not miss out on any interactions it may or may not prompt. So basically what we're saying is, yeah, it's definitely going to be very important. But isn't it strange how as players we are getting in-game choices as to whether to be loyal to Sylvanas or not, now kind of whether to be loyal to an old god or not, not. And, obviously I'm with N'Zoth all day, partly because I'm a discipline priest and it just feels right, and also tentacles. My question is, when do we get to choose between Anduin and Gen? That's the real question, isn't it? There's also the question of the Tempest Crown, the only one of the 3 relics that players can't loot from Unut at the end of the fight, which seems like it might be connected to the N'Zoth whisper, "The veil wanes, his crown will open the way." So maybe it's that crown they're talking about, or maybe it's Magni's crown, or Anduin's crown, or maybe the Lich King's crown, which would be especially good because, as Wowhead pointed out, those runes on Xal'atath do look suspiciously like the ones you'll find on Frostmourne. And you know what? That's why I think I love all this old god stuff so much when all is said and done. Because yes, obviously I love the tentacles and the body horror and the tentacles, but it's mostly the mystery, intrigue, which excites me. These clues they constantly drop that you can talk about and decode for hours. It's just so cool. And yeah, I know we've been talking about this stuff for years, but if it's finally time for the meaning of some of those whispers to start becoming clearer, then yes, please 8.1.5, I am all kinds of in. And I honestly don't even care that the big Azerite fix won't be coming till later.
We've got some more PTR secrets for you in just a minute, but let's go spoiler-free for a moment as we talk about some things that have been happening in the live game this week. There's been some excellent nostalgia this week with Burning Crusade Timewalking, which is totally my favorite timewalking because it's the only timewalking from an expansion before I started playing the game. So actually I suppose for me personally it's not nostalgia so much as actual new content, but you know what I mean. Honestly, I'm still not sure how I'm going to react to the Warlords event next month, whether I'll be pleasantly surprised to head back into some enjoyable dungeons I haven't seen for a while, or whether it'll kind of make me curl up in a ball and cry until it's all over. Who knows? Timewalking is still the absolute best way to gear up a fresh 120 character, as you can queue for it at any item level, and the bosses drop 375 loot, but that's not even the best thing. The best thing is definitely playing Opening of the Dark Portal as a demon hunter, because in that dungeon you all go back in time and get disguised as a human, but no one has bothered to give the humans any demon hunter animations, which means that the dungeon just doesn't know what to do with you, and you spend most of your time sliding around with no animation or feedback at all. You, my little edgelord friend, are a space-time anomaly, and the timey-wimey pathways can't cope, which is why when you mount onto a sky golem, you can make it moonwalk, and that's why I love Burning Crusade Timewalking. I mean, sure, Black Temple, blah blah blah, but look, a moonwalking sky golem. And there is even more nostalgia as testing for the returning Wintergrasp took place on the PTR. The Wrath PvP area is coming back as a queuable epic dungeon in 8.1.5, and although 20 versus 20 certainly isn't epic by classic Wrath standards, this was some nostalgia I could totally get on board with, as the plinky plonky, icy Lich King piano music gave me all the feels. Like seriously, there are no more feels for anyone else because I got them all in Wintergrasp testing. This was a play with the blues test, which meant that there were WoW devs in the battleground seeing it for themselves. But just for once, I like it to be an against the blues test. Like, seriously, put 5 devs in Wintergrasp against 20 players and just let us vent any frustrations or grievances on them for half an hour by hitting them with weapons. It probably won't provide much valuable data, but I think it would be fun, and Blizzard, I think you should really consider it. Thanks. And with that, it's time to put the Redbot spoiler warning back up, because while we are back on the PTR, it would be wrong not to mention the Zandalari Troll unlock quests that are now available, or rather, one specific moment in them. Because as you help Talanji overcome various challenges from the Loa to prove herself worthy of taking on the mantle of Queen of the Zandalari, her final encounter is with the new Royal Loa, Bwonsamdi, who doesn't have a challenge at all, but rather a new deal, allowing her to rid the crown of his influence once and for all.
Bring me the head of the Horde's war chief, and I be forgetting all about your father's bargain.
Yeah, Bwonsamdi flat out just asks for the head of Sylvanas, which, okay, Blizz, I have some questions. First of all, most obvious question, why Sylvanas' head in particular? I mean, there are plenty of people that would like to be rid of the Horde war chief for sure, like, well, about 50% of the Horde at this point, but what's Bwonsamdi's problem with her especially? And is this linked to his mysterious boss that has been hinted at before? Secondly, when he says,
That is a real shame. Been wanting a war chief spirit for a long time.
I'm not really sure we believe you since you had the soul of a war chief you knew personally and was the personal Loa of while he was war chief, but you cared so much about him that you left his urn lying around and then just lost his soul. So actually, Bwoners, I'm tempted to believe that it's not just any old war chief's soul you're interested in, but this banshee-shaped one in particular. Why? And third, okay, I guess it's possible he isn't actually interested in killing Sylvanas at all, and that this was actually the trial he was presenting to Talanji, testing whether she would forsake her honor and betray her newest ally just to get rid of him. A test she passes with flying colors. And actually that does seem pretty likely now I think about it, but come on, you can't just go around saying, bring me the head of the war chief and expect us not to start talking about that. We've already seen hints of a fairly ill-advised union between players and old gods to tackle the Naga coming in 8.2. If Saurfang, Bane, and the rest really are serious about standing up to Sylvanas for the honor of the Horde, is it possible they could be able to find help from a very unexpected skeletal ally? People have been talking about a possible third undead faction all expansion, and we've assumed it would come from Sylvanas. Wouldn't it be ironic if it was the other way around?
Oh, it's been quite a busy week, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
You've been max leveling characters, I've been max leveling characters, we've been making raid progress.
Heck yeah.
Oh man, we had some fun raids this week.
Although we're lagging behind, Vox Immortalis.
Yeah, screw those guys. Screw those guys with their German efficiency. And I bet they do other stereotypical things like they play to the music of an umpire band. We see you, Vox Immortalis.
Yeah.
We know what you're all about.
We know your tricks.
Yeah. But we got onto Mecha Talk.
Yeah.
We're going to have a proper night of Mecha Talk progression tonight. And Mecha Talk's one of those bosses that... This doesn't happen very often because, I love struggling on a boss on Heroic. We're not a mythic team. I'm cool with that. So I like it when we have problems with the boss and overcome those problems as a team.
Progress.
Yeah,
it feels like incremental.
Totally. And it didn't happen much in Uldir because Uldir was far too easy. But, Dazara Lore is a little bit better balanced, I think. And it's not very often that we come up against a boss that after about 3 pulls, I just think to myself, I don't think our guild is ever going to beat this boss. Because our guild is pretty chill and there's a significant amount of people in our guild that don't have microphones.
Yeah.
Everyone can hear the chat.
Yeah.
But there's quite a few that don't have microphones, and on Heroic everyone needs a microphone.
You do.
Otherwise you can't do it. I mean, or at the very least yell macros.
Yeah.
Which
just
some of our players also don't have. So basically there are some people where if they get in the robot, the raid's over. That pull is over. It's done.
I get that though. I remember the first time I got in a robot in normal, I was like, and I started pressing the buttons.
Is that what you did?
Because I was like,
you just literally, what do I do? I know.
Yeah. So I started pressing the buttons, and then that clearly was wrong. And then on my second try, I totally got it. And then you realize it's about helping each other. I get on Heroic, it's a little trickier because only the people in the bots can see each other. But oh my god, there were some great moments where someone would get into the rot and then silence. Yeah. And it would be like, okay, say the colors.
and there are people making a massive effort because there are people in this fight whose voices I've heard for the first time.
I know,
because they don't usually use their microphone at any point in raid, but they're really making an effort to contribute, and they know they've got to do it, and I know it must be really hard for them.
I used to never use mic.
There's a reason they're not using their microphone freely.
Totally.
And my gosh, massive respect to you guys in our raid team whose voice I heard for the first time in Mecha Talk and we'll hear again tonight, because you are pulling it out of the bag. It's awesome. And there are people who are quite talkative on mic who I know find it difficult anyway. And it's just so funny when you have someone going, okay, red, green, blue, what are mine?
Someone say something.
Just say the thing.
Say the words. Or write it out. Write the words out.
Exactly.
Press Y.
And there's no solution to this. There's no solution to this. I just kind of feel like we're never going to do it. I just feel like we're going to be stuck on Mecha Talk forever. We're just going to be behind Vox Immortalis. What we'll have to do is we'll have to just do it on Mythic all the way up to Mecha Talk. Where again, we just stop.
My favourite is when we finished and it was over and we called the raid and someone was like, what happens in the robots? And it's like,
And this isn't a reflection on anyone in our guild,
No, I
because
love
they are
you,
all
guilds,
wonderful
but it
and
just
also, and I
cracks me
wouldn't
up.
change a single
makes me
thing.
laugh.
But oh my goodness, it's like if there was one boss that could possibly be made just to stop our guild ever progressing. I thought it was the game in Jadefire Masters. I thought it was the spinny game.
We
but
skipped that
we
one.
skipped it. We skipped
just
it by
burn it and
cheesing it
skip
instead. Yeah, and we can't do that with Megatalk. So this is like Blizzard sat down. They went, how do we really dick with T&E's guild?
Yeah.
Well, how do we just stop them progressing? And
Yeah.
like presumably on LFR it'd be a completely non-mechanic, and like you'll just be in the robot and you'll just see the colours and you press them.
Exactly.
Like, I
you
guess.
do your own colours. Yeah,
But
that makes
I
sense.
mean, oh my god.
Oh my god.
And I love it. It's so much fun. But there is just that. And now I know how everyone in the guild has always felt about me, hoping that I don't get the mechanic to do because then we'll all wipe. Now I know what it's like. I know how that feels. 'Cause I'm just like, I hope these dudes that don't have mics get it. Don't get it. I just really hope they don't. Otherwise, we're all gonna die. There's just nothing that we can do.
I love
just,
it.
Yes.
I didn't think it could be worse, but this is even worse than the little Plague of Fire in Rastakhan, where people would get it and then would start running around panicked, spreading it to everyone, and everyone's like, "Stop moving!" And like, "Ah!"
Just stay in the fire. Just don't move. It's been a great raid. I love it. I do jump into it at any time I can.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I really like it, and I've got a feeling I better get some beers in tonight, because I've got a feeling a whole night of progressing on Megatalk is going to drive me absolutely. And even if we beat Megatalk, it's Conclave. No, it's a blockade after that, and that can go suck one too. So I mean, I do like it though.
It's fun.
I like being an undead priest.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I like being a troll.
Yeah.
Berserking is great.
I know you like being a troll.
Yeah.
I've seen you replying to comments.
It's my true self.
What's your whole stance on like the whole Zandalari and Tiran allied race thing? Should they already be in the game by now? Have Blizz waited too long? Like, do you even care?
It
What's
would have
going
been nice, and I would have expected them to be here sooner, as they were like a major feature of the expansion when it was like marketed and sold.
on? Yeah. Oh, you
But-
sound upset. You sound angry.
I'm not. No, it's just my cold.
You're an angry YouTuber.
And I'm sweating because I have a cold.
I thought
too.
you were sweating with
I'm not,
rage.
I'm not.
I thought it was rage. I
I'm
thought it was
just
anger. I thought it was passion.
Really
but no, it was
clammy.
none of those things.
I just saw myself on the screen and I'm like gleaming.
It was
so.
just snot. I'd love to say that illness is why I'm looking so bad as well, but it's not. Thank you for joining us today. Sorry it's only been the one video this week. We're almost through on completing our midweek video for this week, which is going to come out early next week instead. Join us for our streaming adventures at the moment as well. 3 times a week we're streaming at the moment.
It's not bad.
To qualify for the old partner.
Is that Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays?
Sometimes,
Ish,
yeah.
yeah.
It's 3 days.
4 p.m. GMT?
It's usually 4 p.m.
sometimes.
GMT. So be there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. Who knows? But who cares about that? Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to help these videos happen. And thank you guys, because without you, they wouldn't happen. So if you like them to happen, thank you.
Yeah.
If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, we are the Shanghai Dragons. No, my name is Taliesin. From me.
And me, Evitel.
Until next time. Cheerio!